And we begin with Macron saying that to regulate artificial intelligence, you need to have it first. Some in my political grouping will say that there is a general problem in the Elysee Palace with intelligence overall, but I think there's truth to that. But I think we should begin in looking at the perspectives. I'm sure of, that artificial intelligence will be a revolution of our industries. We are looking into something as transformative as the Industrial Revolution, as the dot-com internet, and therefore, in general, as a politician, I see it as a positive. And we heard a little bit about Terminator, Skynet, all the fear-mongering, and I think that have a lot to do with the people who are going to be hurt from this revolution. Because these intellectual elites, the journalists, the people in academia, the people in the service sectors who might be affected quite hard from this revolution are naturally scared of it. And they have a greater voice in our public sphere than the blacksmiths who lost their job to automatization, than other vocations that through different industrial revolutions have changed our societies. But when we look at the bottom line, as a society, these revolutions have been for the better. They have made us more prosperous, more rich, and more able to compete in a challenging world where our part in the West of the overall population of the world is in a rapid decline, both because we are not having children ourselves, but also because other areas of the world are increasing their population very significantly. And now we can put all of EU's population together with Great Britain, US, and Canada, and we don't even add up to India or China alone. So if we want to play a role in the next 100 years' development of this world, we need to be better, brighter, and more efficient in what we do. And that is where Europe has its fundamental problem. If we go back just to the millennia, the turn of the millennia, 25 years ago, the EU part of the world's of world trade and of net worth in the world was equivalent of the one of the USA. Today, the USA have almost double the size of the economy as EU. That is a rapid decline in just 25 years. And it becomes even worse when we compare it to China and other parts of Asia, who has been skyrocketing. Of course, from a much lower starting point, but let's be honest, nobody is saying anymore that China is not beating EU when it comes to share of market, research, innovation, so on and so forth. I think Reagan put it quite well, and I think it fits very well in Europe today. In EU, we have a tendency to say if something moves, we tax it. If it continues to move, we regulate it. And when it moves, we start to subsidize it. And we have had a very difficult time getting away from that mindset, to be honest. And the Americans have been working on that much more. And therefore, we end up in a place where the general distribution of work in the world is as follows. America innovates, China copies, and we regulate. And we are proud of it. If we go over just crossing the street here and go into the European Parliament, they would say, my Danish colleague who is one of the rapporteurs for the IA Act, a great socialist, he says, the Americans are so envious of our regulation. And I say, no, I'm so envious that the Americans have economical growth and we do not. But that is actually the mindset that is filtered through in Brussels, in EU. And that is one of our major problems. I'm not saying that we should have the Wild West. I think that experts have very precise concerns that, of course, should be tackled when it comes to IA regulation. But I'm saying this is a new and emerging industry, and we need for it to develop before we can make clever regulation. And also, to be honest, we need competition between the European markets. That was what made us great historically. That was that the Brits could make the Industrial Revolution. We found out it was a good thing and we started to copy it. Sometimes we even sold some butter and some bacon to them while they were making that, so we became a little bit more prosperous in a country like Denmark or Ireland. But this competition was very healthy. That was what made Europe the great center of innovation. The European Union is the opposite. They try to make one size fits all down to the smallest detail. And to be honest, that is a great hindering of innovation. And let me just give you one example, because it's not only the IA Act or this multitude of regulation, it is also the general level of regulation that is suffocating this. In the election campaign last year for the European Parliament elections, I visited the 5th largest insurance company in Denmark. That is a very, very small entity on a European scale, and we had a debate there, and we went to speak to the board of directors. They say, we are getting suffocated. We have 6,000 pages of European legislation that we, in our sector alone, from the European Union, have to abide by. And they said to us, even if you stop regulate this very moment, we have 10,000 pages more that is already adopted in the European Union and on its way to become regulation in European Union markets. And they said it very clearly to us. We want to invest in IA because that is something that will transform our business in the insurance business. But we cannot do that because all the money that we put back into our business is going to be used for regulatory affairs. It's going to be used for people who can control, that they keep up with codes in the European Union. So if we want to get ahead in IA, we have to start deregulating. And everyone here in Brussels are saying Draghi. We have also said Draghi today. I think Draghi have become sort of a magic word from Harry Potter. Because it's a one-size-fits-all, because it's a very big report. He says sensible things, he says stupid things, in my political opinion. But, everyone can find something in the Draghi report that they can take as a small token. So I will not say that we should follow the Draghi report, because some of it makes sense. Deregulating the European markets makes a lot of sense. But making a huge amount of public debt doesn't make sense. Making an enormous idea of public investment in private companies saying we should pick the winners does not make sense if you are conservative, and I'm a conservative. So I would say that all our emphasis should be on regulation, 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 make Europe more competitive with the US and with China. That is where we need to dig in. And let me just mention the last thing, because it was already mentioned in the panel, but it's something that is often forgotten when it comes to IA, and that is the price of energy. The biggest raw material of these big-scale computer systems and so on and so forth, that is the price of energy. And if we have decided in Europe, due to our stupid so-called green transition, that energy should be twice or triple the cost of the energy in the US, we are not getting that. It's basically the same like in all other industries. If you want to have a metal industry, you cannot have two or three times higher cost for the raw material than your competitors. And that is what we have in Europe today. So if we are serious about IA in Europe, and we should be, then we should also be serious about cutting energy prices and going away from this hopeless green transition. That is a fundamental political decision we can take that facilitate and fertilize the possibility for our bright young people and companies to be world leaders here. And we need to be that. And that will be my closing remark, because we have been cut out of the modern industries. We don't have serious hardware companies back in Europe. We don't have software companies. We don't have social media. When we take this iPhone up, 95% of every app that we are going to use in our everyday life come from China, from the US. We cannot afford to lose out one more time when it comes to the industries of the future. And this is the industry of the future, and therefore we need to act rapidly, and we cannot be complacent with the status quo. And what we should not do is just implementing new rules to make it even harder for bright people to have their business here in Europe.